And we are live, always figuring out what is the greatest system of patronage. And I get definitely the most money from patreon.com/Aksum, but it makes me more fragile because there are fluctuations in the amount of patrons or subscribers. So I think I should point you to aksum.substack.com. I think that'll make me more anti fragile in the long run. But Wu Tang Financial taught me to diversify my bonds. So I have the Gumroad, I have the Patreon, I have the Substack, I have YouTube directly. Many ways to give back if you feel so inclined and want to see more of these productions. I'm here today to read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Nobel lecture from 1970, and I'll take related questions, comments, concerns, whatever you'd like to add, and whatever you'd like to subtract. As long as you are not multiplying and dividing, we are okay. Just as that puzzled savage who has picked up a strange cast up from the ocean, something unearthed from the sands, or an obscure object fallen down from the sky, intricate in curves, it gleams first dully, and then with a bright thrust of light, just as he turns it this way and that, turns it over, trying to discover what to do with it, trying to discover some mundane function with his own grasp, never dreaming of its higher function. So also we, holding art in our hands, confidently consider ourselves to be its masters. Boldly we direct it, we renew, reform, and manifest it. We sell it for money, use it to please those in power, turn to it at one moment for amusement, right down to popular songs and nightclubs, and at another, grabbing the nearest weapon, cork or cudgel, for the passing needs of politics and for narrow minded social ends. But art is not defiled by our efforts. Neither does it thereby depart from its true nature, but on each occasion and in each application it gives to us a part of its secret inner light. But shall we ever grasp the whole of that light? Who will dare to say that he has defined art, enumerated all its facets? Perhaps once upon a time someone understood and told us, but we could not remain satisfied with that for long. We listened and neglected and threw it out there and then, hurrying as always to exchange even the very best, if only for something new. And when we are told again the old truth, we shall not even remember that we once possessed it. One artist sees himself as the creator of an independent spiritual world. He hoists onto his shoulders the task of creating this world, of peopling it, and of bearing the all embracing responsibility for it. But he crumples beneath it, for a mortal genius is not capable of bearing such a burden. Just as man in general, having declared himself the center of existence, has not succeeded in creating a balanced spiritual system. And if misfortune overtakes him, he casts the blame upon the age long disharmony of the world, upon the complexity of today's ruptured soul, or upon the stupidity of the public. Another artist, recognizing a higher power above, gladly works as a humble apprentice beneath God's heaven. Then, however, his responsibility for everything that is written or drawn, for the souls which perceive his work, is more exacting than ever. But in return, it is not he who has created this world, not he who directs it. There is no doubt as to its foundations. The artist has merely to be more keenly aware than others of the harmony of the world, of the beauty and ugliness of the human contribution to it, and to communicate this acutely to his fellow men. And in misfortune, and even at the depths of existence, in destitution, in prison, in sickness, his sense of stable harmony never deserts him. But all the irrationality of art, its dazzling turns, its unpredictable discoveries, its shattering influence on human beings, they are too full of magic to be exhausted by this artist's vision of the world, by his artistic conception, or by the work of his unworthy fingers. Archaeologists have not discovered stages of human existence so early that they were without art. Right back in the early morning twilights of mankind, we received it from hands which we were too slow to discern. And we were too slow to ask, for what purpose have we been given this gift? What are we to do with it? And they were mistaken and will always be mistaken who prophesy that art will disintegrate, that it will outlive its forms and die. It is we who shall die, art will remain. And shall we comprehend, even on the day of our destruction, all its facets and all its possibilities? Not everything assumes a name. Some things lead beyond words. Art inflames even a frozen, darkened soul to a high spiritual experience. Through art, we are sometimes visited dimly, briefly, by revelations such as cannot be produced by rational thinking, like that little looking glass from the fairy tales. Look into it, and you will see, not yourself, but for 1 second, the inaccessible, whither no man can ride, no man fly, and only the soul gives a groan. There's a little part two here, so I can pause and see if anybody is here saying anything. Thank you for liking. Thank you for joining. I don't see any comments, questions, concerns. So we'll continue. Again, we're in Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Nobel Prize in Literature, 1970. We've reached part two. One day, this is the part that I like the most. One day, Dostoevsky threw out the enigmatic remark, beauty will save the world. I reworded it here just for funsies. Beauty will rescue the cosmos. Same thing. Beauty will save the world. What sort of a statement is that? For a long time, I considered it mere words. How could that be possible? When in bloodthirsty history did beauty ever save anyone from anything? Ennobled, uplifted, yes, but whom has it saved? There is, however, a certain peculiarity in the essence of beauty, a peculiarity in the status of art. Namely, the convincingness of a true work of art is completely irrefutable, and it forces even an imposing heart to surrender. It is possible to compose an outwardly smooth and elegant political speech, a headstrong article, a social program, or a philosophical system on the basis of both a mistake and a lie. What is hidden, what distorted, will not immediately become obvious. Then a contradictory speech, article, program, a differently constructed philosophy rallies in opposition, and all just as elegant and smooth, and once again it works, which is why such things are both trusted and mistrusted. In vain to reiterate what does not reach the heart. But a work of art bears within itself its own verification. Conceptions which are devised or stretched do not stand being portrayed in images. They all come crashing down, appear sickly and pale, convince no one. But those works of art which have scooped up the truth and presented it to us as a living force, they take hold of us, compel us, and nobody ever, not even in ages to come, will appear to refute them. So perhaps that ancient trinity of truth, goodness, and beauty is not simply an empty, faded formula as we thought in the days of our self confident, materialistic youth. If the tops of these three converge, as the scholars maintained, but the too blatant, too direct stems of truth and goodness are crushed, cut down, not allowed through, then perhaps the fantastic, unpredictable, unexpected stems of beauty will push through and soar to that very same place, and in so doing will fulfill the work of all three. In that case, Dostoevsky's remark, beauty will save the world, was not a careless phrase, but a prophecy. After all, he was granted to see much, a man of fantastic illumination, and in that case, art, literature might really be able to help the world today. It is the small insight which over the years I have succeeded in gaining into this matter that I shall attempt to lay before you here today. It has another section mark, so I'll check in on our studio audience. The studio audience seems to be growing, the likes are growing. Still no chat questions, no super chats, no super stickers of any sorts. And so I shall check the live chat again and go back. All right, part three. In order to mount this platform from which the Nobel lecture is read, a platform offered to far from every writer and only once in a lifetime, I have climbed not three or four makeshift steps, but hundreds and even thousands of them, unyielding, precipitous, frozen steps leading out of the darkness and cold, where it was my fate to survive, while others, perhaps with a greater gift and stronger than I, have perished. Of them, I myself met but a few on the archipelago of Gulag, shattered into its fractionary multitude of islands, and beneath the millstone of shadowing and mistrust, I did not talk to them all. Of some I only heard, of others still I only guessed. Those who fell into that abyss already bearing a literary name are at least known, but how many were never recognized, never once mentioned in public, and virtually no one managed to return. A whole national literature remained there, cast into oblivion, not only without a grave, but without even underclothes, naked, with a number tagged on to its toe. Russian literature did not cease for a moment, but from the outside it appeared a wasteland. Where a peaceful forest could have grown, there remained, after all the felling, two or three trees overlooked by chance. And as I stand here today, accompanied by the shadows of the fallen, with bowed head allowing others who were worthy before to pass ahead of me to this place, as I stand here, how am I to divine and to express what they would have wished to say? This obligation has long weighed upon us, and we have understood it. In the words of Vladimir Solovev, even in chains, we ourselves must complete that circle which the gods have mapped out for us. Frequently in painful camp seethings in a column of prisoners, when chains of lanterns pierced the gloom of the evening frosts, there would well up inside us the words that we should like to cry out to the whole world, if the whole world could hear one of us. Then it seemed so clear what our successful ambassador would say, and how the world would immediately respond with its comment. Our horizon embraced quite distinctly both physical things and spiritual movements, and it saw no lopsidedness in the indivisible world. These ideas did not come from books, neither were they imported for the sake of coherence. They were formed in conversations with people now dead, in prison cells and by forest fires. They were tested against that life. They grew out of that existence. When at last the outer pressure grew a little weaker, my and our horizon broadened, and gradually, albeit through a minute chink, we saw and knew the whole world. And to our amazement, the whole world was not at all as we had expected, as we had hoped. That is to say, a world living not by that, a world leading not there, a world which could exclaim at the sight of a muddy swamp, "What a delightful little puddle!" At concrete neck stalks, "What an exquisite necklace!" But instead, a world where some weep inconsolate tears and others dance to a light-hearted musical. How could this happen? Why the yawning gap? Were we insensitive? Was the world insensitive? Or is it due to language differences? Why is it that people are not able to hear each other's every distinct utterance? Words cease to sound and run away like water, without taste, color, smell, without trace. As I have come to understand this, so through the years has changed and changed again the structure, content, and tone of my potential speech, the speech I give today, and it has little in common with its original plan, conceived on frosty camp evenings. That's the end of part three there. I see a little more people in the live, but still no chats to address. Let me see. It goes on. There's a section 4, section 5, section 6, section 7. Okay. So we should at least take care of the majority, but leave you wanting for more at home so you could complete it on your own. So I'll go ahead and read section 4 to you, and then I expect you for homework to read 5 through 7. From time immemorial, man has been made in such a way that his vision of the world, so long as it has not been instilled under hypnosis, his motivations and scale of values, his actions and intentions are determined by his personal and group experience of life. As the Russian saying goes, do not believe your brother, believe your own crooked eye. And that is the most sound basis for an understanding of the world around us and of human conduct in it. And during the long epochs when our world lay spread out in mystery and wilderness, before it became encroached by common lines of communication, before it was transformed into a single convulsively pulsating lump, men relying on experience ruled without mishap within their limited areas, within their communities, within their societies, and finally on their national territories. At that time, it was possible for individual human beings to perceive and accept a general scale of values, to distinguish between what is considered normal, what incredible, what is cruel, and what lies beyond the boundaries of wickedness, what is honesty, what deceit. And although the scattered peoples led extremely different lives, and their social values were often strikingly at odds, just as their systems of weights and measures did not agree, still these discrepancies surprised only occasional travelers, were reported in journals under the name of wonders, and bore no danger to mankind which was not yet won. But now, during the past few decades, imperceptibly, suddenly, mankind has become one. Globo Homo. Hopefully one and dangerously one, so that the concussions and inflammations of one of its parts are almost instantaneously passed on to others, sometimes lacking in any kind of necessary immunity. Mankind has become one, but not steadfastly one as communities or even nations used to be, not united through years of mutual experience, neither through possession of a single eye, affectionately called crooked, nor yet through a common native language, but surpassing all barriers through international broadcasting and print, an avalanche of events descends upon us. In 1 minute, half the world hears of their splash, but the yardstick by which to measure those events and to evaluate them in accordance with the laws of unfamiliar parts of the world. This is not and cannot be conveyed via sound waves and in newspaper columns, for these yardsticks were matured and assimilated over too many years of too specific conditions in individual countries and societies. They cannot be exchanged in midair. In the various parts of the world, men apply their own hard earned values to events, and they judge stubbornly, confidently, only according to their own scales of values and never according to any others. And if there are not many such different scales of values in the world, there are at least several, one for evaluating events near at hand, another for events far away. Aging societies possess one, young societies another, unsuccessful people one, successful people another. The divergent scales of values scream in discordance. They dazzle and daze us, and in order that it might not be painful, we steer clear of all other values as though from insanity, as though from illusion, and we confidently judge the whole world according to our own home values, which is why we take for the greater, more painful, and less bearable disaster, not that which is in fact greater, more painful, and less bearable, but that which lies closest to us. Everything which is further away, which does not threaten this very day to invade our threshold, with all its groans, its stifled cries, its destroyed lives, even if it involves millions of victims. This we consider on the whole to be perfectly bearable and of tolerable proportions. In one part of the world, not so long ago, under persecutions not inferior to those of the ancient Romans, hundreds of thousands of silent Christians gave up their lives for their belief in God. In the other hemisphere, a certain madman, and no doubt he is not alone, speeds across the ocean to deliver us from religion. With a thrust of steel into the high priest, he has calculated for each and every one of us according to his personal scale of values. That which from a distance, according to one scale of values, appears as enviable and flourishing freedom, at close quarters and according to other values, is felt to be infuriating constraint, calling for buses to be overthrown. That which in one part of the world might represent a dream of incredible prosperity, in another has the exasperating effect of wild exploitation, demanding immediate strike. There are different scales of values for natural catastrophes. A flood craving 200,000 lives seems less significant than our local accident. There are different scales of values for personal insults. Sometimes even an ironic smile or a dismissive gesture is humiliating. while for others, cruel beatings are forgiven as an unfortunate joke. There are different scales of values for punishment and wickedness. According to one, a month's arrest, banishment to the country, or an isolation cell where one is fed on white rolls and milk, shatters the imagination and fills the newspaper columns with rage. While according to another, prison sentences of 25 years, isolation cells where the walls are covered with ice and the prisoners stripped to their underclothes, lunatic asylums for the sane, and countless unreasonable people who, for some reason, will keep running away, shot on the frontiers. All this is common and accepted, while the mind is especially at peace concerning that exotic part of the world about which we know virtually nothing, from which we do not even receive news of events, but only the trivial, out of date guesses of a few correspondents. Yet we cannot reproach human vision for this duality, for this dumbfounded incomprehension of another man's distant grief. Man is just made that way. But for the whole of mankind, compressed into a single lump, such mutual incomprehension presents the threat of imminent and violent destruction. One world, one mankind cannot exist in the face of six, four, or even two scales of values. We shall be torn apart by this disparity of rhythm, this disparity of vibrations. A man with two hearts is not for this world, neither shall we be able to live side by side on one earth. So there's still 5 through 7 left for you to read at home. But in the sections that I've read today, you see the context, at least according to Alexander Solzhenitsyn, of Dostoevsky's line, beauty will save the world, or beauty will rescue the cosmos. You see also that he's not impressed with liberalism or the liberal world order that certain people have spoken about their fears of it fading away recently due to global events that seem to be breaking apart the monopolar or single powered world, the hegemony that America through its empire has had, and will bring back the multipolarity of nations, or at least regions or hemispheres of the world ruled by various superpowers instead of one world power, and that has a chance of matching the diverse values of the world as opposed to imposing one set of values on the entirety of the 7 billion human beings. Ian Pardue, thank you for joining us. That really is deep, sounds a wee bit similar to the Platonic view of beauty, and I agree with most of what the author says that you're reading from. Yeah, so that's Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and it's from his The Nobel Prize in Literature, 1970. I read for you sections 1 through 4. You can read sections 5 to 7 if you so choose. The main thing I wanted to talk about was that the context around the beauty section, but it's nice that he also critiqued the global system of homogenization in favor of more and genuine global diversity in governance. And so that's what I have for you today. Do any of you have any questions, comments, concerns, things you would add, things you'd remove? All right. If not, thank you everyone for tuning in. And remember, beauty will save the world.